I love all the comments I receive on videos, I swear. But there's a certain comment that I get on a certain type of video, and that is on my older Windows Phones videos, there will always be those comments, always, almost once a day, of people saying, "Oh, I still use my Windows Phone every day. I'm overseas, it works great." And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, good for you. I'm happy for you. Really am." No, it made sound insincere, but I'm jealous. Look, I'm jealous. I have no problem admitting that it's cool that other people around the world get to use their Windows phones in areas where 2 and 3G are still valid, which should be here, but the powers that be in the United States have decided that these phones are too old and you can't possibly use them on their networks anymore, especially AT&T, who's been especially aggressive in getting rid of these older devices. But every time that I pull out something like this Nokia 920, and we could talk about the design because it still wows me every time that I pull it out. You got kind of the stormtrooper look to it, the blacked out buttons, the white, the heft to it, just the overall. It's a fantastic device. And back in 2012, it had stuff like wireless charging, all day battery for sure, no problem, out of a 2,000 milliamp hour battery, to tell you how optimized that Windows, Microsoft, and Windows phones were with their devices at the time. And that's running a Snapdragon S4 Plus. So that was, believe that was what was in your BlackBerry Classic as well. The Q20 was running an S4 Plus. So you could, or maybe a Q10, but similar speeds there. You could certainly see. But how efficient these devices used to be, how well optimized the OSs used to be, and every time I go back and play with these things, and the lock screens that would change, and now we all get wowed. You know, Apple now, iPhone, they're gonna have the lock screens that change, and you could flip them back and forth, and you could do different stuff with them and set them up the way you liked it. And then back in the day, every day you'd have a different lock screen based on whatever Bing had. But every time I go back and look at Windows phones, I always have a new feature that I forgot existed, or I see on devices today that is considered a big deal, but it was pretty commonplace for those of us that had Windows Phone back in the day. And the one that really surprised me was everybody talks now about security, right? You got Google makes such a big deal of their, Titan chip and all the rest of it, M2, whatever that thing is, the Titan security chip that they have in their devices, and Apple now comes out with all the privacy stuff that they've come out with, and now Android 12 since then has had the little notifications in the upper right-hand corner when using the mic, and when you used to have it now, permissions that certain apps could use. 2012, we're talking Windows Phone 8. You could go down to settings, and this is something that shocked me. I remember it at the time, but now it just always really surprised me. You could go here, go down through settings, as you see Gene sneezing in the background, and you get, did I go past it? Yeah, I did. Here it is, right? Advertising ID. Advertising ID. Resetting your advertising ID makes it harder for apps to connect your past activities with your future ones, and you could turn it off or reset it so apps couldn't track what you were doing and what you were looking at, and customize sales stuff, and for their data to be sold to companies to customize advertisements for stuff they think you're going to buy. This is 2012, and it's not hidden away. It's not a feature that you have to go looking for. It's right in the main settings menu of the device. Just fantastic stuff that you used to get. And we go all nuts about widgets and all the rest of it. And when they had the live tiles, integration with social media we go nuts with now, with Twitter and Instagram, where you had all the people that you'd want, the connections, the Facebook integration, all the great stuff. And the gaming now, now gaming is a huge thing. You have people, you would have the fantastic game companion that you could keep track of your friends' achievements on Xbox. You could talk to them. You could party up. The Maps app was great. The way that they handled photos, you had the Zeiss camera lens here on all these devices and the Zeiss technology. Recorded 1080p. The screen was only 720p on the Lumia 920, but that didn't matter because you still had 1080p that you could record in. And even though a lot of the Windows Phone devices back in the day were really, even if you don't want to call them pioneers, they were pretty aggressive in putting OLEDs, even in their lower end devices, or at least devices that you wouldn't expect OLEDs to be in. This one's an LCD, but it has the dark mode, but also the black's not so bad, right? It doesn't look gray. You can tell a little bit of a difference with the black border, but I tell you, just to the eye, it's fantastic. It saves battery life. The innovations that came from, and just the design language, by the way, we're going to pull out. Look at, I have the 800 series, and I have a bunch of these just roaming around. 920, 800, 700s. I get them all confused. I believe this is a 700, but I just got a bunch of them. But I pull out and I look at, and I'm always in awe holding them in my hands, and I get jealous of these people that come out and say they could use them every day, and I miss them. I just miss them. That's why we do Windows Phones videos still on this channel. It's why I have all these. They're collector's items at this point, especially this. These are Windows 7.5 devices that really have no place now, and really bad. You can't even log into most stuff. And Windows 8 now, you're going to have a tough time logging into just basic stuff with Windows 8. Let's see if the Instagram app will still work. I don't think so, because Microsoft, you got Internet Explorer being sunset now, and the support for all these things. It'll still run basic stuff. Let's see if I could go to, like, mobile sites. It'll run. We got ESPN here. Will it come up? I think that the mobile site, it'll detect it. Yeah, there it is. So basically you get no pictures and easy stuff to load up. That stuff it'll do. And I'm sure some of the newer stuff still runs fine. If you could get Windows 10 on a device, which this I cannot get on, you have to really sideload to get Windows 10 on these. I tried to do an over-the-cable update on the 920. Didn't work. I think in the last video I did on the 920, I talked that was something that I was going to work on doing. And I did. I loaded up the software. There's some sort of correction you have to do to the software now, or you have to change the path of the IP address or something in order to get it to recognize where the files are on the Microsoft servers, but it just doesn't recognize the 920 as a device that could still be updated, which really is a shame, because I think it could run it just fine. I think it could run Windows 10. I think you get a little bit of life left out of it if you're in another country that still allows 2G and 3G. But for the most part in the United States, these are collector's items, toys that you pull out, and you get nostalgic over as you look over all the wonderfulness that was Windows Phone. But I do get a kick out of pulling these devices back out, going through the OS, and seeing things and features and security items and optimizations and dark modes and widgets and all the rest of it that I guess essentially took for granted back then, that are now being touted as these fantastic features that you have on Android and iPhone devices in 2022. So this device came out in 2012, so we're still catching up in a lot of ways to Windows Phone, which is weird, because you don't think of, with the problems with just regular Windows, you never really considered Microsoft to be this kind of innovator. But when it came to mobile stuff, it's just the fact that they were late to the game. They didn't take the iPhone seriously at first. They didn't take iOS as a legitimate threat. It cost them. If they had gotten to this earlier, you would have seen more app support. You would have seen more developers come on board. You would have seen a lot of those third-party apps that people like would have been on here, as opposed to Android. If there were faster adoption and saying, okay, the touch screens are the way to go, not the Motorola Qs of the world, because it wasn't... Windows Phone 5, or Windows Mobile 5 rather, was horrible. Not good. And I think it was 6.5 or 7 is I think 7 is when they transferred over to the kind of tile architecture here, design elements, user experience, and it got a heck of a lot better. But if they were I like a lot of the Surface products, the tablets, the computers, I just feel like they're just always a step behind. Like, they recognize this stuff, and it's like, all right, well, at first they ignore it, like the iPad. But, oh, wait, when they get in the game and they take the time and they put the industrial design into it, they do good stuff. And Nokia and the Lumia, the marriage, Nokia and Microsoft marriage produced good stuff. But it just didn't get the traction that it needed to get the support to keep people around. But man, when you go into your AT&T store, your mobile store back in the day, even if you had an iPhone or an Android, you can't tell me you weren't at least curious and head over to that corner and enjoy all the different form factors and all the different colors and all the different things, like the Nokia 1020, that camera hump on the back that Windows Phone had going for it and the Nokia devices had going for it back then. I just miss it. I know a lot of you watching out there do as well. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-alicious day.